Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for having me here for the organization. Actually, to concur with Stephanie, I'm from the 80s. I'm an entrepreneur, just set up, a few years ago, set up my company. And it's all about collaboration. What I heard in the last days is talking about co-security. It's about working together. It's about securing together. Well, what I will talk today about is working together with a crowd, with a community of people, the picture that you can see on screen right now. That's what I'm here to explain a little bit about. Over the past years, we've founded the company Integrity, which is a crowd security company. Now, it's not about the company, don't worry. I am going to talk to you about the community. And I want to demystify a little bit who is living in that community, sitting on the other side of the screen that we have. Now, traditionally, many of you, when talking about security testing, they probably will do a security check done by an internal team. Maybe you have the luxury of having a red team in your company. Or maybe you do it together with a security consultancy company. Now, what I'm not saying is that we are here to replace this, not at all. But what I am here about is how you can evolve that. Working in a traditional security setup, a traditional security exercise, basically means that you will get a team in at a time-boxed moment. At a certain moment in time, you're going to ask one person or a team, I have this scope. Can you please make sure it's secure? That's what it is all about, right? And at the end of the exercise, you get a report, you get basically a summary that tells you what's wrong, what you should be fixing. The disadvantage of this exercise, while it's very good because it follows a certain methodology and you have a kind of guarantee that your scope, what you want to test, has been looked at by some experts, what's really good there is that you have that guarantee. What's not so good is that we are continuously evolving the scope. You are continuously releasing, making changes in your environment, right? And that's what a crowd security platform, a bug bounty platform is all about. What we do is that we have a platform where we have a community of worldwide researchers. Call them hackers, call them security passionate people, we call them researchers. These people are being challenged by companies worldwide to find vulnerabilities. They're basically telling them, this is our scope, can you go please hack, test the security of all these assets, and if you succeed in finding a vulnerability, please let us know. That's where we come in, a little bit as the glue between all of these. We will validate the vulnerabilities, and then they go off to the company. Now, the more severe the vulnerability is, the more the payout typically also is towards a researcher. So the researchers are being paid for impact and not for time. That's a big change. And the researchers are not working from Monday to Friday. No, they're working continuously whenever they feel like it. They're working on their terms, meaning when they want, where they want, and they will be paid on impact. And that's a huge shift coming from traditional security. So today we're going to talk about these people sitting behind the screen. Because a lot of companies, while they understand what it might bring them, it's quite a challenge because it's like, yeah, but this can be anyone, right? It can literally be anyone in the world to hack us. Well, first of all, you can be hacked by anyone in the world today, right? I mean, that's number one that we need to understand. What you do here is you give them an opportunity to at least work together with you, to co-secure. That's the whole thing. Now, sorry. I'm first going to talk to you why it is a good idea to work with the community. We already had a time box, we already had experience, but there's a key thing which is creativity. So over the past months, we did a survey. We do a yearly survey where we ask to the community members to give us some facts and details, but also what they think. And one of the questions that we asked them is about new vulnerabilities. And 64% of the people basically told us we encountered new things that we had not seen before this year. So there's a lot of creativity in this community. There's a lot of new thinking, and that's quite easy to explain. Because they don't have to work in a time-boxed way, they can spend as much time as they want on a hunch, on a feeling that there might be something. As long as they believe that there will be a vulnerability to exploit in the end, they know that they can earn, so it's worth it for them. So to help them and giving them a better way of, or more certainty, we've developed a Fastlane program. A Fastlane program basically helps researchers when they have spent a lot of time on thinking about a vulnerability. And it's not about 0 days on commercial products, let's be very clear. This is about thinking outside of the box, meaning there's a certain way that the whole world has been doing something, and I found a bypass in that. So as soon as this comes online, as soon as this is published in a write-up, then this is a catastrophe because everybody needs to make immediate changes. The Fastlane programs is exactly for that. We welcome the research, and if the research appears to be valid, we will give them access to all our customers to work with them to explain this discovery before it hits the public audience. So it helps to de-risk companies, but also gives an opportunity for the researchers to get a return on their investment. Giving you some other reasons to work with the crowd, and I think I want to highlight 2 numbers here. On average, when a company starts to work with a crowd, with a community, in the first week, just in the first week, they receive 53 vulnerabilities. That's just in the first week. I'm talking about unique vulnerabilities. On top of that, if you combine that with the very last number, 71%, 71% means that in the first 48 hours, these companies will receive a high severity vulnerability. So I'm not talking about low-hanging fruit, hygienic security issues. No, I'm talking about a real deal. Here's the data of your customers. Can you please fix this? That's what we typically see from companies. Now, obviously, we already have talked about the people sitting on the other side of the screen. Now, who are these people? 73% of them are under 30, which is very easy to explain. These are young graduates. They basically want to make more money, get an extra income, and they could do so by getting a side job, by working for a delivery company, by driving around, or they can do what they're passionate about. They can do security testing. And at the same time, they're learning new techniques. So that's what we typically see in terms of age. Now, if you go to location, then you can see that we are having a global community. We have researchers from 115 countries. Given some side stats on that, but meaning that we are working with a global community, and that's also a very interesting fact, because most of you will be focused on what's in it for me, what do I get in return, right? You want to improve your security maturity in the end. What's in it for them? These are people, some of them living in ideal circumstances, good circumstances, Western world, but a lot of them are also living in low-wage countries. These are also bright and smart people, but they just didn't get the same opportunity as many of us did. They're stuck in a certain environment. What you do here is that you have a direct impact on these people. You give these people a possibility to work with you, get great value, and change their lives. You have an impact on how they are living. We just came out of a pandemic. And it's very interesting to see what that pandemic actually did for that community. Obviously, there was a serious uprise. Obviously, there were a lot of people that lost their job, that suddenly arrived home, or they had more time because they were not sitting in traffic anymore. So they could invest more time into things like this. So yes, we've seen a lot of activity from researchers, but that's not the only thing. At the same time, we saw a lot of vulnerability. So we were like, what's happening here? Is this because we just have more active researchers? The truth is, at the same moment that we had an uptick in those researchers, the companies or organizations suddenly had to implement loads of changes. People wanted to or could only work from home because of lockdown. You had to support that. So you're changing your business, what you're doing to support all that. Secondly, you might need to change your business or your way of doing business. In order to support, again, that, you're making a lot of changes. And you know what we couldn't do at that moment because everybody was doing it at the same time? Security testing. So we were increasing the risk continuously, and that was a return to the community. Now, if you look at how much time people are spending, researchers are spending on this, then you will see that 86% defines themselves, so the majority of all these people defines themselves as a part-time bug bounty hunter. It even becomes so interesting for them that they can get a quarter of their salary and bug bounty payouts on top. This one is probably, for me, the most impactful, or, well, when I saw this, I was like, wow, I was really pleasantly shocked. 66% of the community considers bug bounty as their full-time profession. Normally, when you have an InfoSec profile, the typical thing to do when you get from school is that you work for a consultancy company. That's like, if you ask the majority of the students, what are you going to do next year in the InfoSec industry, then it's consultancy. This changes. These people are ready to make the jump, 66% of them ready to make the jump to go full-time, work when they want, where they want, in the condition and the setup that they believe in, and do what they like to do. That's huge. Now, obviously, we want to know who's sitting as well in terms of capabilities behind the screen, right? So when we started to ask them, like, okay, what's your real experience? Like, do you have any hands-on experience with penetration testing? Do you have the skills for it? Because, don't forget, bug bounty, crowd security typically does not follow a methodology, while traditional security testing gives you the advantage that there's a certain checklist methodology being followed. Bug bounty hunters will do what they're good at. They will focus on the vulnerability classes that they think they master. That's the benefit of working with specialized people. So 65% does have experience in penetration testing, but if you then ask, what's the strength there? What's really surprising, and I don't mean that in a negative way, they talk about time. There's no passion here. It's about time boxed. So if you then start to ask about how do you feel about penetration testing and being secure as a company, then 88% of those same people that answered, I have experience in penetration testing, then say, I don't think that's sufficient to be secure a whole year long. And if you then dig into this, then they suddenly talk about passion, about I can do what I like to do. I can earn based on the impact that I have. I can choose when and where I work. So suddenly we do talk about passion. That's crowd. Now, it's very important that if you want to work with a community, that you also give them an opportunity to work with you. It all starts there. When we asked, did you ever find a vulnerability on some scope that did not support disclosure? 70% said yes. That means that they found a vulnerability somewhere in the wild, and they did not have a way to report it back to the owners of that asset. So the only thing that these people can do at that very moment is go to social media, go to LinkedIn, send an email or message to customer support, and I'll tell you, it will go wrong. because the people behind customer support, they're not trained to welcome technical messages. So if you're lucky, it comes through LinkedIn. And then my question to you is, if you receive a message on LinkedIn, hello, sir, I found a vulnerability in your assets, how do you respond? Do you welcome that? Or are you like, hey, that's not what I asked you to do? So my question is, please, for every company, the absolute minimum, and does not cost you anything directly at least, set up a page on your asset, on your website, that basically explains to these people, if you happen to find something, if you see something, say something, we welcome it. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it will help you in your security. Now, obviously, what we did learn is a lot of these people, researchers, they don't really want to work just with no platform in between. They want to have a middleman in between. 86% told them, like, we really don't want to do it, and on top of that, 23% prefers not to do it. And if you dig into why don't you want to work in this way, why do you want to work with a platform, it's about quality assurance. It's about having a certain way of working. It's about making sure that when a vulnerability is submitted, everything is handled in a fair way, in a timely manner, that the quality assurance is done. And that's the benefit for them to still work in a middleman. So while they don't want to work for a consultancy company anymore, hence middleman, they do want to work with a platform which gives them all freedom, less obligations, but they can choose. And they still like that. So it's not that they're against this setup of working, absolutely not. Well, we heard the challenge of them. What we learned is that they're really ready to make the jump into full-time, community-driven work. The only thing that they're missing is more of a certainty, more of having an income quite predictable. Because that's a disadvantage of a bug bounty hunter. He cannot predict his earnings. So we have developed hybrid pen testing. Again, this is not there to replace pen testing. It's though a common name. What we want to achieve there is that we can give a predictable return to a researcher when they do something, and on top of that still pay for impact, still pay for vulnerabilities. But what we especially want to do for the companies is give them more control. At this moment, bug bounty means, here we are 24/7, feel free to test, attack, and let us know. But a lot of companies actually were asking us, yeah, sometimes we do need a specialist, and we don't find a specialist in the market. We do have a worldwide community filled with specialists, and we know them. So we can help you in linking them. You give them a certainty, payment, and on top of that, it's still about impact. So I hope that this gives you some insights about the community. Now, the report was only launched yesterday, the report of 2022. There's a URL where you can download it and learn much more than I just had within the time frame I was given. So please feel free to download the report and have a look at it if you want to know more. But that was my insight about the community and giving a face to people on the other side. And I hope it was really useful for all of you to learn more about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your secrets.
Thank you very much.
Now we have time for one audience question.
And there we go.
There we go.
Thank you very much for this insight. Okay, I have a very simple question and straightforward. I see pros and cons with this approach. When you have a community within the country and outside the country, how do you handle the risk part when you have a community which is performing tests on your live or, let's say, lab environment to find the vulnerabilities, and you are giving your infrastructure to someone where he is not bound to any compliance or legislation of or local government policies? How do you overcome this risk and challenges when performing any kind of testing on production or live environment with your community, which are not part of your organization?
No. So basically the question is more about like if you are working on a production environment, how can you make sure that people will, well, do the right thing, work within the boundaries that we give them. First of all, what we do at the platform is that you can choose as a customer to work only with identity checked people, meaning that you literally have certainty that people behind screen are identified. You can even go region-based if you want that as well. But mainly everything is supported by a legal framework. And because we know who's sitting on the other side of the screen, we know who you are, we know who we are, and we have a contractual agreement, we really don't see any issues in that setup. But even beyond that, we do give control to the companies to specify what they can and cannot do, and there's a lot of checks on that. That's a little bit too much for going into detail right now. Happy to take the question offline. But that's basically giving you a lot of controls and specifying from the whole community who do you actually want to work with. That's basically what we can do to help in that scenario. And not all companies are working on live environments. Typically in the finance industry, we have a lot of companies that are working in a private program on a pre-production environment as well. And sometimes we go that far that we do live hacking events, which is literally the coolest thing you can have, that you have 30 to 50 people flying in to your location, to your HQ, and they come over a weekend to really hack your assets. And that's really the next level thing.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much.